Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have special guest Amy Stein. Amy is an herbalist, energy medicine educator, and trauma-informed breathwork facilitator who assists others with reconnecting to their body's innate intelligence using Mother Nature as a guide. Amy believes that when we awaken to our inner light and wisdom, we can sync the mind with the body and the spirit. She combines the power of plants along with energy medicine techniques and breathwork to create harmony with the body and the environment. Welcome, Amy. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Tana. I'm excited to be here.
So we've been on this little journey the last couple of days trying to figure out what exactly are we going to talk about today. And boom, here we are synchronistically. We're going to talk about the magical essence of plants and how Mother Nature has gifted this to humanity. And so we're going to kind of mold and mesh together energy medicine with plant medicine today, which is really exciting because it sounds like you and I both have learned in these areas, and we have a lot to share today between the two of us. And so, I love working with plants, all different types of aspects of the plants. And recently I did an episode on Bach flower essences and how they literally catapulted me into my spiritual awakening. And I moved across the country. I moved from Florida to the Pacific Northwest. And I blame wild oat on that one because wild oat really activated a lot of things inside of me. And just those simple flower essences can really shift you from the inside out. And you create a lot of different tinctures and balms and elixirs and remedies and whatnot. And we're going to talk about that later in the show, about all the amazing things that you're making. But first, I wanted to kind of dive into your story a little bit on, what led you to herbalism and kind of seeking more of a holistic approach to your healing.
Yeah. So it was not a very straight route. It was very kind of curvy and all over the place. So I was raised like most people on Western medicine, right? Like you're sick, you go to the doctor, they fix you, they give you a medication. And so as a young child, I had a lot of symptoms coming up from my body, and I was labeled by the doctors and people around me as being too sensitive, right? I was difficult because I didn't want to eat certain foods. I was very picky with what clothing I wanted to wear, where I wanted to go, people I wanted to be around. And so it was really frustrating for me as a kid because I felt like I wasn't being seen, heard, or believed, and I could experience these sensations and emotions, but they were not being validated. So I learned to kind of try to ignore those because I was labeled different and too sensitive, and I didn't want to be that, right? Like you want to fit in as a kid, you want to be liked. And so this pattern of behavior actually set me up for a lot of chronic disease coming on. It was like mid to late 20s. I started to really experience a lot of chronic disease symptoms. But again, I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was normal because in our society, like, oh, we get older, things happen. We think aging and things breaking down and the body giving you symptoms is all normal. It's actually not. But again, I didn't know that at the time, right? As like a 25-year-old. So I was working with chronic pain patients, and they were geriatrics. So they're like 65, 70. I began to resemble them at like 25.
Oh my goodness. And I can totally empathize with that because I worked with older folks too. Mm-hmm. It's like you pick up that energy. Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? Like, am I just empathizing too much with them? Like I'm advocating for them. I didn't understand like what it meant to be empathic. Am I absorbing their energy? Like I didn't understand any of that, right? Like I was very science-based, this is black and white. There is no gray. Like none of this other stuff exists, right? If you can't see it, it's not real. It doesn't exist. And so my body was giving me all these messages, but again, like most people, we're taught not to listen to them or choose to ignore them, stifle them, right? They're not real. And so I created a lot of physical ailments in my body to the point where I was bedridden. I couldn't leave the house. I had severe chronic pain. And then my lab work started to show something was wrong, right? But the thing is, like, your body will give you symptoms before the labs will actually pick them up. But because modern day science is not caught up to that yet, it's like, oh, it's all in your head. There's something wrong with you, right? Like I heard that a lot as a kid, like, oh, it's all in your head. you're just being difficult, you're too sensitive. But it actually wasn't. There was things going on as a child that were not being addressed. And so as I grew older, these problems just kept manifesting at a grander level. So I was stopped working. I went, again, the route of going to the doctor, trying to get fixed. I live in New York. You throw a rock, you hit a doctor, right? Like there's no doctors where I live. And I saw all the top specialists, and nobody could agree on what was wrong with me because I did not fit into the boxes clearly. Like I had all of these different symptoms and they didn't seem to be related. And because in Western medicine, they don't look at the whole body, and they're not looking for the root cause, they're just managing symptoms. So again, it was always like, take this medication, have this surgery, go have this test done, right?
Spending thousands and thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And all of this time. And the frustration of you're physically so sick, so exhausted, right? You can't think clearly. You're just looking for help. You're desperate for diagnoses, and you're like shopping doctors because you're hoping that the next one is going to help you. And you walk around with this briefcase of all your tests, all your labs, all of your notes. And it's like, it's the same thing every single time. It's a dismissive, we don't know what's wrong with you, or take this medication, or we can't help you, come back when it's worse, right?
We'll
and so
a specialist. Yeah.
And like the specialists don't talk to each other, right? Because we part out the body. So you see the GI doctor, you see the neurologist, you see the rheumatologist, right? You see the neurologist, and no one talks to each other. So there's this huge disconnection, and we think that's normal. And so my body was giving me indications that this was not normal, that something was being missed. But I didn't know what to do because I didn't have that knowledge in something else. I only had this knowledge in Western medicine. That was what I was brought up in. And so I did this merry-go-round for about 3 years. And then I decided I'm done. Like, I've made my peace. If I'm going to die, I'll die. Like, it'll be on my terms. I'm not going to get guinea pigged anymore because I feel like they're killing me. And so I decided I was going to fire all the doctors. That did not go over very well with my family.
I was going to say, how'd your family respond to that?
Yeah. No, it did not go over very well. And I kind of was like, this is my choice. I'm an adult. I'm no longer a child. This is what I'm choosing. And at that point, my gram had passed away a few years prior. And she had, was always in the garden. Growing up, we were always in the garden together with my mom. And she had this herbalism book. And my dad was like, hey, we're going through gram stuff. Like, we found some books. There's one about herbalism. Do you think you want it? And I was like, I think I do. And then the universe,
speaking to you on the other side.
Right, exactly. It gives you breadcrumbs, right? So then I got emails about this free herbalism training. And then I got, another email about, get this new herbalism book, or, learn to forage. Yeah. And so when you kind of follow the breadcrumbs, the universe keeps giving you the information. So to everyone else, it was crazy, right? I was going off the yellow brick road. They're like, oh my God, why are you doing that? I'm like, no, I think there's something else here. And I began to study Ayurveda, and I was like, oh, this has been around for 5,000 years. Why is nobody talking about this?
Exactly.
This looks at the body as a whole. It doesn't it looks for the root cause. And so it's all about balance, in that you learn that the body's designed to heal. The body is always trying to bring you back into balance, but in our modern day society, we're always working against the body. So we're always doing things that actually hurt and hinder the process. And we don't know that because no one tells you that, right? You're not taught any of these things. And even when you get sick, it's not, they don't talk about food. They don't talk about chemicals. They don't talk about medical trauma. They don't talk about childhood trauma. Only now is it somewhat being mentioned in the functional field, the functional medicine field. But it's something that I had to kind of figure out all on my own. And again, I could read medical journals, right? So I could read it, but I had severe brain fog. I had migraines. I had vertigo. I was bedridden. I couldn't do a lot, but I could, in the times that I was able to focus, I could take some notes. I could learn something. I could watch a video. And I began to kind of crawl out of that hole. And the first step was plant medicine.
Wow, that's powerful, Amy. I mean, I can really empathize with you on that. I also was bedridden for 4 months when I moved across the country, and I couldn't figure out, I had been through my journey similar to you. I worked in healthcare. I saw it firsthand. I worked in death and dying. I was constantly seeing frequent flyers coming in, people with the same ailments and issues, getting prescribed medications, leaving the hospital, coming back with the same ailments and same symptoms. And so I was on the other side of the of the coin saying, there's got to be something more. We can't be living in this broken cycle. And so I think it sounds like you and I were both kind of catapulted in the direction of holistic healing in a way, but we had to do it through our own pain, right? And through our own suffering in order for us to really empathize with others who are going through pain. And I remember, I don't know how much pain you were in, but I remember my pain was so bad. I made a comment to my dad. I mean, I was a college athlete. I was always a healthy kid. But when I went through this chronic pain, I said to my dad, now I know why people commit suicide, because I want out. I want out of this pain. I can't find balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it was terrible. It was one of the worst experiences. And so, when you're going through chronic pain, it is exhausting. I, like you, was just laying in bed watching YouTube, like, what can I do? I'm crawling to the bathroom because my back hurt so bad I couldn't even stand up. And so, I think unfortunately, we get to a point when we have to, there's no other choice. We have to be forced into finding another path. And, luckily you had your grandmother there. My grandma just passed a few years ago, and she's constantly giving me, information. And I always joke that our grandmothers are on the other side. They were kind of guiding us and giving us those breadcrumbs. And so, Amy, you talk a little bit about herbalism and allopathic medicine. Can you talk about the difference between the two of those?
Yeah. So in our society, allopathic medicine is conventional medicine, Western traditional medicine, right? You have an ill, you get a pill, right? Like, so we treat the symptom. Where herbalism, we look at the body as a whole, and everybody is different, right? So we all have different needs, different experiences, but it relates to Ayurveda in that we have the constitution, right? So we all have a different constitution. So in Ayurveda, there's 3 different constitutions. There's Kapha, which has like a cold, damp, heavy, overweight tendencies, right? Then Vata is like air, wind, so that's very thin, but you also be very dry, right? And then there's Pitta, which is hot and fiery, right? So you actually can be like angry a lot. And so that's very like a very brief overview, but that understanding, plants also have that. So they may be hot and dry, they may be cold and damp. And so we use the plants to balance what is coming up in our body. So if I'm always hot and dry, I don't want to take a plant that's hot and dry because it will just make me hotter and drier. I want to find a plant that's going to cool me off, and it's going to moisten all of my dry parts, right? So when people first start herbalism, they look at it the same way that allopathic medicine of like, oh, I'm just going to take peppermint if I have a headache, right? Like I remember when essential oils were introduced to me like 15 years ago. Oh, you have headaches? Take peppermint oil. It didn't work for me. And I was like, that doesn't work. And I thought, essential oils don't work. No, it's because the person wasn't looking at my body as a whole, in that I was always cold. So peppermint is not great because it's a cooling plant. So when we can understand in very simple terms that every plant has different properties and every person has different properties, and we can understand them, and they also may change at times. The plants won't, but the persons will, right? So if you then address your cooling tendencies and then you're hot all the time, then again, like you have to then refer back to like, what am I still missing? So we use symptoms to address what is actually going on to rebalance the body.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've studied Ayurveda a little bit. I actually have a friend here. She kind of taught me a little bit about it. What is it called a dosha? What's it called? The different,
Yes.
And so, but I remember when I lived in Florida, I went to an Ayurvedic retreat for a week, and I learned a lot about that. And I didn't really realize, though, to associate it with plant medicine. That in itself that's just another deeper level of understanding how plant medicine works for us. And I want to dive into the different types of plant medicine. Like you said, you talked about essential oils. I work a lot with Bach flower essences and herbs as well. But you kind of gave me a list of some that I wasn't even familiar with. And I like to go through them, and just kind of talk about each one and what they are, because I think when people say plant medicine, they think cannabis or they think ayahuasca or, these types of things, when there's all these other different types of plant medicine that I want to bring light to today in this show that people may not even have on their radar.
Right. Yeah, for me, like plant medicine is eat your weeds. Like it's foraging first and foremost, because what Mother Nature actually intends for us by design is more nutrient dense than anything you or I could actually grow ourselves. Right. So, like when people are spraying their weeds with glyphosate and Roundup and all these chemicals and herbicides, I get really upset because I'm like, first of all, you're poisoning Mother Earth. And second, you're poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
And that's food. Like that's actually nutrient dense
Yeah, like
food, right?
dandelions. I get so
Right?
frustrated about that.
Yeah. And I'm like, you can't eat the grass. Like you can't eat your lawn, but you can eat the clover. You can eat the dandelions. You can eat the cleavers. You can eat the
The
chicory,
lettuce.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so like for me, it speaks to this disconnection that we have in our society from being disconnected from Mother Nature, but also being disconnected from the own innate wisdom within us. And that's what was reawakened for me at my sickest was like, wait a second, maybe I know what's best. Rather than always looking outside of myself to somebody in a white coat to fix me, wait a second, I'm living in this body. Maybe I should be making the decisions. Maybe I know what is best for me, right? And so it was kind of like radical. I was like a little scared to have that feeling because it's not acceptable in our society to feel that way, right? Like,
And you're
nope,
taking
you
your
need a
power back.
medical. Yeah. And so that's what it was, is plant medicine encouraged me to take my power back. And it opened me up to all these different ways that you can ingest plants, so that as long as humans have walked the earth, we've used plants for medicine and food. But we've kind of gotten away from that, and that we just go to a grocery store and we just expect something to be there. And the pandemic was a great example of that cannot always be the case. It's not a sustainable system, right? But if you learn how to forage, and again, like I tell people, get out books from the library. Like you need to read books. Like I don't trust what's on Google. It's not accurate information a lot of the time. So get a foraging book for the area that you live in, right? So I live in New York. So I have like 5 different Northeast foraging books because I want to compare to make sure, like, is this the right plant? But the foraging is becoming popular. They do it in Central Park in New York City, so it's
Yeah, they
becoming
have mushroom foraging groups here.
right.
You can actually join and
Right.
they take you
Yeah,
out on
that's
a
really
hike.
popular by you is the mushroom foraging.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
And upstate New York, they do mushroom foraging too. But like out by me, they don't really do it so much. So I don't have a master forager to learn from. So I just read a lot of books. And like you don't want to actually, unless you can properly identify something, you don't want to eat it because it can be bad. And then like, you want to be mindful of where you're foraging from. Like I have animals, so I'm not going to forage where my animals go. We don't spray chemicals, but I'm not going to forage in areas that I know chemicals are sprayed. I'm not going to forage near busy roads. I'm not going to forage where there could be sewage runoff. Like it's having this awareness again of what's happening around us and being mindful of that. And then saying, like, what can I do with these? Right. And ethically harvesting only what you can actually use. So a lot of people get really excited and they're like, oh, I'm going to take all of this that I found. That's not what we want to do. Like we want to be again in connection with Mother Earth and be appreciative of what she's giving us and not take everything, just taking what you need because you might not like it, right? So like then when you bring it home, figuring out what you can do with it. So you can make teas with it, right? You can make an
Yeah, let's
herbal
break it down.
infusion.
Let's use like a dandelion, for example. How can we take a dandelion plant from the root to the flower, and let's break it down and what we can utilize it for, but maybe just taking one,
Yeah. So dandelion, you can use the whole plant. You can use the flower and make an infused oil. You could also use the flower and make a tea with it if you wanted to. I wouldn't do that. I would more use the root because that's more what it's known for. And that would be a decoction if it's dried, because anything that's like a dry bark or root material is going to be a decoction because you're going to have to brew it longer than you would a tea.
Like a burdock root or something like that?
Yes, like burdock or dandelion root, comfrey root, yellow dock root, even like barks. If you're getting like wild cherry bark, those typically will take longer to take the medicine out of the plant, right? So the thing is, when you are gathering plants or wanting to make your own herbal medicine, you want to know what is the best use of this plant. So like for me, dandelions, I just throw them in my smoothies because it's quick and easy. And like, that's my greens, that's my liver support. Like it's all in one, right? But I also use the blossoms and I make infused oils with them. And then I blend them with other infused oils and then I make them into medicinal balms. And I use that for lymph support because a lot of the plants that come out in the springtime are going to support the kidney, the liver, and the lymph. And that goes back to Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And again, traditional Chinese medicine is ancient healing, been around 5,000 years, just like Ayurveda. So, and it also talks about like hot, cold, damp, dry. Like, again, it has all of these similarities. It's just a different system, but it's very, it talks more about meridians than Ayurveda does, but it's very similar, all of these systems. Indigenous medicine, same thing. Like they used all these plants, right, for different things. And so,
Yeah, like poultices and stuff.
exactly. And the dandelion too, you could make a poultice out of. Plantain would be better if you got a sting. And that's something that also grows in the spring, is wide broadleaf plantain, or the thin leaf plantain. But so like there's so many different.
I know my grandmother used to make dandelion greens. She'd go out back, pick a
Yes,
bunch of them, and literally just kind of cook the greens down, or throw them in a salad raw.
salad, right. You
Mhm.
can make wine. Some people make wine from it.
Oh, that's delicious.
Yeah, so you could ferment it, right? So there's like so many different things that you can do. You could make an oxymel with it. It would be very bitter because
What is an
dandelion.
oxymel? Can you explain what that is?
Yes. So oxymel is equal parts honey and apple cider vinegar. So typically what you do is you gather whatever plants you're going to use and you put it in the apple cider vinegar, and it sits like a tincture for 4 to 6 weeks in a cool, dark place. You're supposed to shake it every day. I never remember to do that. Like it's getting like you're doing the best practices, right? So ideally you want to shake it every day. If you're like, it's not the end of the world if you don't, right? The liquid, the menstruum, whether that's vodka, if you're doing a tincture, or brandy, whether that's apple cider vinegar, if you're doing an oxymel, that's what's going to pull the medicine out of the plant. So just like olive oil is going to pull the medicine out of the dandelion blossom or the dandelion leaf or root, that liquid is what's going to then be potent with that medicine. So then you're going to discard the plant material after that 4 to 6 weeks, either the infused oil, the tincture, the oxymel, right? And then you have all that goodness in your liquid. So for oxymel, then you would add honey to taste. So like fire cider is a very common oxymel.
Yeah, okay. And
So,
it reminds me, in the South, my friends would cook collard greens with apple cider vinegar, and I didn't understand why. So it's like they were extracting the nutrients into
potency.
collards.
Yes. And so you can do it with a lot of different things. So like fire cider is traditional. Rosemary Gladstar created it in like the 70s. And that's like your onion, your garlic, your horseradish, bunch of herbs. You also add citrus to it again, so it's like really potent. And that's the thing, is it's a very potent medicinal brew. But if you don't like it, like I personally don't like it, but I make it because my friends love it, so I make it for them. But I personally don't love it. It is intense.
I had it on hand during the pandemic just to have here in case I needed it, but it's intense.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, right? So like that's the thing, is that some of these, so with plant medicine, like I could give you a tea to drink for all of your ailments, but it probably is not going to taste good, so you're not going to drink it, right? So, but if you could get like organic crushed herbs and put it into pills, you could take it that way, right? Like you could still ingest it that way. You could also mix it with honey into pastilles, and you could eat it like that. You could make what they call like bliss balls. So you do like some sort of nut butter or seed butter, and you add your herbs to that. And that's how you can get your herbs in. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. It's just what are you actually going to do? Like what is going to make it so you actually ingest the medicine, right? So for me, I like making the infused oils because then I make bombs. And so when I have pain or I have lymph issues like I'm having today, like I will put that on my body and it feels good and it's soothing. And then I'll also internally take homeopathic remedies, which are, again, are a type of plant medicine and also an energetic medicine, because they have a vibrational energy of whatever they're diluted from. So homeopathic remedies go back to ancient Greek times, right?
Probably
so
even go back prior to that,
Right, like it's a long time. So like ancient Greek is like, the BC era, like it's a long time ago. And again, like it's something that's still around. It's just not readily talked about in our country because our country's system is based upon drugs. But
toxins.
It's not right. It's not recognized by the body. It's recognized as a toxin by the body. Where plant medicine, the body recognizes because it's not diluted. It's like, this is real. This is something that actually exists in Mother Nature. So the body works better with plant medicine because it's not something that's been changed.
Yeah, and it works with your natural frequency. Chemistry. Where pharmaceuticals actually lower your vibration, where plant medicine will raise your vibration or expand your frequency.
Yes. And so I always refer people to the homeopathic route first, because if I'm not monitoring them, like with herbalism, you have to be careful because there are some plants, like you cannot take a lot of them because it will be dangerous. It will cause a poisonous reaction, right? So again, it's being mindful and aware of what we're doing. We're doing it with an intention. It's not just like, oh, let me try this thing and then more is better. It's not like that, right? So with homeopathic remedies, there are no side effects, there are no medication interactions, and you could take all of the pellets in a bottle and nothing would happen to you because they're so heavily diluted, but they still have that energetic component of the plant, of the animal, of the mineral, of the environmental whatever, right? Like that's how they are created, in that the body, again, it rebalances that energetic frequency because we're electrical, we're energetic, physical, mental, spiritual, like all of those things, right? But in our society, we're just obsessed with the physical and sometimes mental, but not really, right? So like there's this lack, this disconnect. And so we walk around numb from the neck down. But when we connect back to Mother Earth, we begin to like reopen to new. Oh, this is different. And it's not bad. It's just different, right? And to have the courage to try something that maybe you would never do before, but just to try a little bit of it and see what happens, right? And see, oh, I like drinking this infusion. I like drinking this. You know, a lot of people drink tea all the time and don't think about like they're drinking
Herbs.
plants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And you may be guided to certain ones, certain times of the day, or you may be like, all right, I've been doing dandelion root for a week or two. I'm going to back off a little bit and give my liver some time to process that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, it's working with your body, but the body will still indicate to you if it's helpful or not. Right. So like I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, oh, I took all these supplements. I feel like I was dying. I'm like, right. Because you probably took like more than you needed, or they weren't high quality, or it wasn't what you needed. Right. Like, I don't know exactly what the case was, or you could have been like doing a hard detox, which your body does not want.
A Herx reaction.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's this thing of like, we get really excited and we think more is better, and it's not. It's not the way to go. Like, it's small steps. It's small, manageable steps. What is something I can try and see how my body responds? Because not every body is going to respond in the same way, because we're all different. We all have unique needs and experiences. So it's being open and curious about that. Like, oh, let me try dandelion root. I don't really like it. But if I mix it with chicory root, I like it. Or if I mix it with burdock root, I like it. Or if so like to be open to what you try something you don't like it, that's fine. So try another way, right? Like, so I tried essential oils, I didn't like it, but I like the flower essences, so I'm going to stick with that. Or I don't really like
hydrosols, even hydrosols.
Right, exactly. I don't like the tinctures, but I can take organic supplements, organic Tulsi in a pill, and I'm fine. Right. So it's like, it's finding what works for you, because I would never sit here and say like, you need to do these things, because who am I to say that? I don't live in your body. And what worked for me isn't going to necessarily work for you. But it's really important to understand that plant medicine takes a little bit longer, because it's actually addressing the root cause. Like, it's actually dealing with the real issue that's going on. It's not just treating the symptoms like Western medicine.
The Band-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I suffer from migraines. So when I feel a migraine coming on, if my feverfew is growing, I'm eating the feverfew leaves, or I'm drinking my tincture, because that helps me. And it's actually working with my body rather than against it, which would be the Advil or the ibuprofen or the Tylenol or the Aleve or
just bogging down your liver, which then it's pushing all those toxins back into your bloodstream and back into the body, where the plant medicine is actually moving it out, and it's resetting the frequency. And Amy, I want to talk about, because you and I both work in energy medicine. One thing that I learned, I went and did Donna Eden's class. I actually met Donna Eden. She's amazing. For those of you out there that want to learn more about energy medicine, check out Donna Eden's work. I learned the best tool I use it all the time, and that's muscle testing or applied kinesiology. And so, when we talk about you're overtaking supplements or you're doing this or that, muscle testing is something that you can actually utilize. I've whittled down a lot of my supplements because I was like a crackhead when it came to supplements. And my dad is like, I put everything in my smoothie, and then he doesn't feel well. And I'm like, you're overdoing it. So I'm trying to teach him the art of muscle testing, or just tuning into your intuition and asking yourself, will this benefit me? Okay, how much do I need to take of this? And so, Amy, let's talk about this. How can we kind of bridge that gap between plant medicine and energy medicine, because they just go hand in hand?
Yeah, they do. And they actually work with each other to balance the body in a more natural way, so that, because the body is energetic, the body is electrical, right? And so it recognizes things that are in that same vein. So when I first started with plant medicine, and then I led into energy medicine with Donna Eden as well, because I think that's funny. And then I was doing muscle testing before that, but I wasn't trusting the answers. So I think that's important, because in our society, we're taught not to trust our intuition, because again, you can't see it, it's not real, it doesn't exist. And so I would like do it, I do this method, the hand.
Yeah, I do this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So like there's like 5 different methods that you can do, right? So I would do it like 7 times, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, it's every time it's different. And then the person was like, you're only supposed to do it once, and you just trust the answer. And I'm like,
and I am truth. Show me
right.
Truth. Yes.
Right. I'm like, I don't think that's right. I'm going to do it again. She's like, this is not helpful. So it took me a while to actually trust that the muscle testing works. I had doctors who were muscle testing me, and I saw that, like, when it's easier when you can do it to somebody else, because you're not as biased, right?
Yeah, you're right. You don't get in your head as much. Yeah.
You're not as invested in the outcome, right? And so that's what's really important with all of this, because healing is not linear and it's not easy, as you and I both know. And when you're invested in the outcome, you make it harder than it needs to be, right? Like, it could be very simple, but we think that's too easy. And so muscle testing is very simple. It's a yes or a no. But we're like, no, that's not the answer I wanted. I'm going to do it again. I want to get the answer that I wanted.
Right? Dandelion root. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I don't like the flavor.
And I'm like, I don't want to drink the dandelion. Right. So I'm going to do it until it says no. And that's the thing. It's really getting in contact with your intuition, and like trusting that higher wisdom, that higher self, that inner knowing actually is there to help you. And it's a positive voice. It's a positive emotion. It's not this, negative, repetitive self-talk of not nice things, right? It's this positive energy. And so when you can begin to trust it again, and do it with like inconsequential things, right? Like, not like something important. Like, start with very simple things, like, should I eat chicken or fish tonight for dinner? Like, something that's not going to be life altering, right? Like, should I leave my husband? That's not what you want to start with. Like, you don't want to start with things like that.
Well, and usually you can't predict future stuff with a kinesiology, right? It has to be a heart-spaced intention with it. Yeah.
Right. And you want to play with it. So a lot of times what I did to practice was, I would be in the supermarket, and I would just walk around like the produce section, like, should I buy this? Should I buy this? And then that was kind of how I practiced, because it was something that was impartial, and I wasn't so invested in it. And it was like, is this good for me? And so I do the same thing every day. I muscle test what supplements to take.
Yeah, supplements are a good one to practice on. Yeah.
Like what tea to drink. I muscle test a lot. I actually do it like all day long and don't even realize it, because it's just some part of my routine, right? So I'll be driving home and I'm like, which way should I take, this way or that way? And I muscle test. And so I feel like when you get comfortable with it and you trust it, and that's also like, I do the emotion code and the body code.
I do too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I muscle test while I'm going through,
of course.
Yes.
I'm telling you, if there's one tool you can learn, it's applied kinesiology. It is the best tool. I have all the Bach flower remedies. And when I do a tincture for myself, say I set the intention, I'd like to heal. Like recently, I'll share the story. I wanted to heal my receiving. I was having a block in my feminine energy. And so I've got my whole Bach flower tote, there with all of them. I went through and muscle tested which ones do I need to create more abundance so that I can open up the flow of receiving. And I went through muscle test, pull it out, and then I'd muscle test how many drops, Well, and then I'd create my tincture, with it. And then I would muscle test how many times a day do I need to take this? How many drops? Well, this is what guided me, Amy, was I started to learn I needed to take a drop for each chakra. So I started at my root, and I would say, we'll use abundance. I am abundant. I take a drop. I move up to the sacral. I feel abundant. Take a drop. I move up to the solar plexus. I do things that bring abundance into my life. Take a drop. I love how abundance, presents itself in my reality or whatever. I speak abundance into my reality. And I take a drop all the way up, and I would use each of the chakras and their corresponding statements to work up. And I was joking with you this morning, I activated my Shakti energy by doing this. And today I am a furnace. I am on fire. And so utilizing plant medicine, the Bach flower remedies, and the energy medicine, understanding and of the chakra system, I literally activated my Shakti, which is my feminine energy, that receiving energy. And whoa, I could feel the energy this morning moving up the base of my spine, up kind of like, coiling around, and boom, out the top.
Energy. Yep,
yeah.
The Kundalini energy is alive and well in you.
It's powerful. Those plants. Okay. And I've been doing it for maybe 7 to 10 days with the Bach flower. But I started doing the energy medicine, like the actual statements, maybe 3 or 4 days ago. So when you combine the two, things can happen pretty rapidly. And I wasn't expecting it to happen this morning right before our show, but as synchronicity has it, here we are. And this is exactly what we're talking about. And so, there's so many layers to this, and how we can incorporate them into our lives. And I think that was the message that you wanted to get across, Amy, was that these plant medicines work very different for each individual. And we really need, my whole show is about how to tune into your inner guidance system. How do we, stop looking for validation outside of us from the white coats and turn ourselves inward and find our own remedies, find our own healing from within. And that's a tough shift to make, especially when you're going through chronic pain or some side of maybe dis-ease in the body.
Yes, it is really hard. And I can totally relate to people who are struggling in that, because you and I have been there. And at times, like, I still struggle, like I'm not fully healed, right? And I'm okay with that, because I know as long as I'm in this physical body, things are going to come up. Like, it's just part of the process. And so I've made my peace with that. And so it's accepting that this is what's happening for me, not to me, right? And so a lot of in the space right now of healing is still the impact is on mindset. And I disagree with that a lot, because it is more than just mindset. Like, you cannot think your way better. You really can't, because you have to bring the body along. And I know this from personal experience, because I tried to do it all in my brain. I call it manic healing. Like, I tried to do everything in my brain and stay numb from the neck down, and thought that I could heal myself. And it didn't work. Yes. Did I get better in some ways? I did. But did I get the lasting healing? I did not. Until I actually was physically present in my body and feeling what was coming up, emotions, sensations, and letting it be felt and processed, I did not get better. I would not be able to do these interviews. I would not be able to tell my story without being triggered and activated by it. So it's really important for people to understand that there are no quick fixes. Like, there is no magic wand. There is no do this thing and everything is better. And it looks different for everybody, right? And healing is it's not easy. And it's also not very clear, in that there are certain ways to do things in order to not get sicker, but also what worked for me, again, may not work for you. Right. So yeah, like, it's just the freedom to be curious about what could be different from what I'm doing right now. Right. So if it's not working and I'm struggling, I'm having all these symptoms and I feel really frustrated, and I'm in a disease state, and I have chronic pain and chronic illness, and I maybe don't have a diagnosis, or I do have a diagnosis. Like, what could I actually, small step, like, what would be manageable for me to change? Could I get rid of, like, can I look at my toxins and the toxic load that I'm exposed to? Like, we live in an extremely toxic
metals.
world.
Let's look at parasites.
Yes.
Let's look at,
right.
And you're
Just
right.
the chemicals.
It's multidimensional. We're looking at
Right.
physical, mental,
Exactly.
emotional, and spiritual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it could also be just as simple as, what are the chemicals I'm using to clean my house with? What are the chemicals I'm putting in and on my body? Right? Because we just think like, oh, this is at the store, it's safe for me.
How many
It's
cosmetics
not.
am I wearing that have toxic chemicals in them?
I mean, and like laundry soap and the fragrances and the candles, like all these things, right? Like, there are natural ways that you can use plants
Yeah.
I know. But there are natural ways that you can use plants to substitute those harmful chemicals. You can use plants in your bath with Epsom salts and not use a fragrance potpourri in your Epsom salts, right? Like you can use plants as essential oils as a room diffuser and have no toxic chemicals as long as you're using high quality essential oil. No
Exactly.
toxic
And that's a whole
chemicals.
nother topic in
Yes,
itself.
I'm like, that's a whole nother topic. And like, so there's ways that you can incorporate plants. Like I use high quality essential oils to clean with. I use thieves to clean with. I use thieves to treat mold. I use thieves in my
I use
laundry
it as
soap.
Goo Gone. I use orange essential oil as
Me
Goo
too.
Gone.
That's what I do too. And so like
And
that's
bug
the
spray.
thing is,
Okay,
yes,
coconut oil and vanilla.
right.
Best bug spray out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or like I use it, I make my own body wash. All it is organic olive oil and Castile soap. Right. So like you can do things cheaply, easily that are not actually poisoning your body. And so when you can, that's a small change, right? So like your body wash runs out, you're like, hey, I'm going to find something that's better. I'm going to go to the environmental working group and I'm going to find something that's better. Or there's this new app called Clear Ya, Clearya, and you can put it on your phone or you could put it on your computer browser. And when you're shopping, it will let you know like, this is good.
Oh,
This is not. Yes. So
I always joked that my friends 10 years ago are like, you're like your Amish. You're making your own laundry detergent, your own dish detergent, your own milk. I was making almond milk and, all these things. And they thought I was a whack job. And I'm like, listen, here we are today in a place where, we've got to learn how to be more sustainable and learning those lessons on how to create things and how to make things from more natural sources and more natural ingredients.
Yeah.
Like you could have a handful of almonds and make milk and you can make almond flour out of it.
Yeah. Yes. And like I went today to go get to Costco to get like the big things of vinegar. They were all sold out. I'm like, oh my God, are other people using vinegar to clean their house now? Like
everybody's doing baking soda and vinegar right now to clean their veggies because of appeal. All of this stuff is going on.
I don't buy the appeal, but yeah, you can't clean that off. Like that's not coming. Yeah, you can't clean that off. Just disclaimer there. Just don't buy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I use vinegar to clean pretty much the whole house, right? Because and I add essential oil and I'll add Castile soap or, natural dish soap to it. And I can use it for a lot of things. And so there's no harmful chemical. Like I'm not getting exposed to anything. So my body is less
your
taxed.
pets too. Let's talk about that because those plugins, Swiffer Wet Jet, my friend's 2 dogs died from Swiffer Wet Jet because their little paws, she was washing the floors, just going back to more clean, holistic ways of cleaning. You will notice your pets will shift as well because what you are putting in your environment, your pets are also breathing in and ingesting as well.
And that's why it's important to have an air filter. Like whatever you're exposed to, even if you think your body is not displaying symptoms to it, I guarantee you make the switch, you're going to see symptoms go away. Like it's a big shift that you can make really easily. But people are attached to some of their products. And I'm like, listen, then know how to read labels because that free and clear is not free and clear.
I saw
but you think it is. Can you trust that company? But I'm telling you, it's not free and clear. So
I saw a reel the other day with a girl running down the laundry detergent aisle like this, and I'm like, that is me. I'm like,
me too. I don't go down that aisle.
Grab a sponge or something. And I'm like, oh, like I'm running down the laundry detergent aisle and I can't breathe.
I know. And like people think that that's normal. Like, oh, it's normal. It's supposed to have a strong, like I can't be outside if someone's doing laundry in my neighborhood because the smell, it's so noxious. And I'm like, oh my God, don't they smell that? And my husband's like, not as sensitive as
I'm
you.
Like, you need wool balls. You need wool dryer balls. This is ridiculous.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, but people are so used to the same thing, right? Like what we've been taught. And that's why I say all the time, like healing is unlearning. It's unlearning all of the things that you thought that you knew were right. And trying something different that will actually help you rather than hurt you.
Yeah. And like you said, it's going to take a little bit of time, because you can't just start going clean and then notice results that next day. You're going to notice it over the course of time. It's kind of like when I switched from regular to organic. I know, when I noticed it first, I don't eat dairy now, but I used to. I noticed it with cheese specifically. I went from eating regular cheese to dairy and then to organic and then back, and I could taste the chemicals in the cheese. I think that was my first actual aha moment that, wow, what a difference just switching those types of things. And so,
Right.
when you're doing that with your cleaning supplies or your laundry, and I'm like that too. I live in an apartment, and when my neighbors use Downy or Snuggle, I'm like, oh, I got to shut the windows. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you're ruining the fresh air of what Idaho smells like because you're using Snuggle, fabric. And I'm like, here's some vinegar. Here's some, it's like I have all these. I kind of want to go knock on their door and be like, hey, do you have an endocrine disorder? Like, because it's kind of crazy, but I can't. It's like you said, it's to each their own, and we're all on our own journey, and we're all going through our own healing process. And until someone kind of comes to me and says, hey, I have these issues, then I can kind of go through, well, what does this look like in your home? Are you using these products, and how does that go? But it does. When you first start healing, you want to go out and share everything with
Yes.
the world.
And you want to push it on everybody, right? But it's yes, everybody has the right to choose what's best for them. And even they might not choose what we think is best, but that's their journey.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that's the hardest part for me as well, is that I see so many people suffering and I make suggestions and they don't do it. And I kind of get mad because I'm like, well, you're choosing to suffer, right? Like you could take the responsibility and make the change. Like you didn't, we all make choices in life. No one is holding a gun to our head, hopefully, right? And so you can make a different choice. You have the freedom to do that.
And it's hard though, because look at your journey where you said your family, when you started going herbalism, your family was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So a lot of it is we're breaking those generational patterns as well. And so that's a part of it. Like, we're healing the physical, we're healing our emotional, all those limited belief systems that we have. We're looking at our mental, what's our subconscious and conscious mind doing? And then we're looking at our spiritual aspects, and so it's like layers of an onion. You're just kind of peeling them away, and they go back and forth. I mean, I noticed that I'll be working on my emotions, and then, oh, I got a pain in my side. Okay, what am I working on over here? And what do I need? Okay, do I need some essential oils for that? How do I work through this? And so that's where I think muscle testing is amazing to learn how to do, because it really does help you. Is this emotional? Is this physical? Is this mental? Is this spiritual? Okay, where do I need to
is it mine?
Yeah.
Is it even mine, right? Because it could be inherited. So we inherit a lot of these conditions, a lot of these issues from past generations. And that it's up to us then, if we're choosing to do the work to heal them for the future generations, and then heal all of the past generations. And so energy medicine, indigenous medicine talks about this a lot, and there's ritual, and we don't have that in our society anymore. There is no more ritual. There is no more.
The ritual's driving in your car and going to the doctor for the 27th time to.
Yeah. And like, there's still this disconnection from community, right? And so we, when someone says something that bothers us, that's automatically bad. Like, oh, they're wrong. We have to make them wrong because we can't live in that gray area where they could also be right and we could also be right. Like, no, that doesn't work that way, right? And so when we study these ancient healing practices, it also opens us up to healing all parts of ourselves as well, the mind, the body, the spirit, right? And all that encompasses. And so I think it's really important that we don't just drink the top of the Kool-Aid, like we actually go deeper and drink all of it that's there, and actually see all of the benefit, and how, because you have to, these systems, it is a whole system of learning, right? And they are really complex, and there is a lot of parts, like herbalism is also like with astrology and with the planets, right? So we won't even get into that part of it.
Yeah.
Like also the days of the week with Latin, that's also herbalism, right? So it's a very complex system. I've been studying it for 9 years. I still don't even, I feel like I still am like a newbie.
Yeah, there's so many
right?
aspects.
I'm still a newbie. And that's the thing, like these master herbalisms, they'll say, start with 5 plants. Start with 5 plants, get to know those 5 plants really, really well. And so, I grow a lot of the plants on my own property. Do I know them really well? Maybe, but I'm also open to them leading me. And that's part of developing my intuition, in that the formulas that I create are actually created by something bigger than me.
Of course.
It's the plants, it's Mother Nature, it's, it's the universe being like, hey, put these together, try it out, and then you can share it. And that was how my whole thing evolved, of like, I started doing this thing for myself, and then people were like, oh, you're fermenting food. Can I have some of it? I'm like, okay. Oh, you're making kombucha? Can I have some of it? Okay. Oh, you're making, fire cider? Can I have some of it? Okay. Right? Like, oh, you made these bombs and gave me for Christmas. They're nice. Can I have one of them? Sure. Right? So it's like, it's this, I'm trying to educate and empower people that do something different. Like it's nothing bad is going to happen. You might just actually have like a great breakthrough like we both did.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm learning about sound now and the healing benefits of solfeggio frequencies and incorporating sound into the plant medicine. And yeah, like right now I've got 528 hertz playing on in the background. And so these are things that, sacred geometry, we're only like just scraping the surface of what we can do. And like you said, I've been doing this for maybe 15, 20 years, but I still feel like a newbie, right?
I know. I'm 10 years in, and I'm like, I'm still new at this. I don't, there's still so much of it I don't really understand, but I can talk to a little bit of it, which is more than most people know. So yeah, I'll talk to that little bit of it, right? But it's like, and that's what's really great about it too, is that there's always something new to uncover, right? So again, like master herbalists will say, like, these 5 plants will continue to teach you your whole life, because you could know calendula really well. And then when I'm 95, I'm going to learn something about calendula that I never knew before, right? Like that is just the evolution of Mother Earth and how resilient she is and how powerful she is. And that's why I want people to revere her and respect her rather than pollute her.
Exactly.
And destroy her. And so it's really important, because that innate wisdom that lives within her also lives within us.
It does.
So by revering her, you're actually revering yourself.
And when we heal her, we heal ourselves, and vice versa, right? And so, Amy, I want to talk a little bit about your Etsy shop and all of the different products that you offer. I was able to check it out yesterday, and I was like, wow, she's got some really cool stuff on here. So can you kind of just go through some of the products that people could find on your shop?
Sure. So if you're dealing with chronic pain, the best seller is the Pain Be Gone. I created that probably 9 years ago. I was using it today because a 2x4 fell on my foot on Sunday. So I've been using it, yes, for the last few days. But it's a great blend that actually will help with any sort of pain that you have, and the plants that are in it will actually help to assist repair with muscles, tendons, and ligaments. So I've broken my feet multiple times. That is the pain balm that I use. There's also a lymph balm. I use that daily as well, just to promote lymph, because the lymph system has no inner pump like the heart, the circulatory system. So it needs you to either move your body in a certain way, do dry brushing, take Epsom salt baths, do a sauna, do cold plunge,
rebounding,
right? All these different things. And if it's a lymph balm, actually helps to move things as well. So anywhere in your body that's like sore or red or swollen, you put that on there, it'll help to have the lymph flush, and that will move the toxins out. Because if you're just holding on to your toxins, you're just contaminating your body more, and you're stressing it out more, and it can't do what it needs to do. Sleep is also really important. I have a Sweet Dreams balm, and we don't actually respect our sleep in our society. Everyone says I'll sleep when I'm dead. And it's like people brag about how little sleep they get. It's actually really bad. You're actually
sleep. I always say I came to Earth to sleep. It's like my favorite thing to do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm that person. I'm in bed sleeping by 9 o'clock at night. I get up at like 5:30.
With my lavender essential oil going in my diffuser.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is when your body runs all of its healing and detoxing programs. So if you're not sleeping at those times, you're not getting that. So, and then an epidemic of not sleeping creates chronic illness, creates chronic disease, creates pain, creates obesity, creates a lot of disease. And so it's really important that you do that. We don't have any blue light in our room. We have no TV. We have no phones. We have no electronics at any kind in our room. Our room is strictly for sleeping. And that's the way it needs to be. That's not going to be, it'd go over well with people, but that's the way that.
Hey, that's how my room is too. And I have more than enough crystals to beam me up, Scotty. I mean, it's just, that's how it is. But I sleep like a baby. Literally, I sleep like a baby.
Yeah. And so, and then I also have a bunch of blends that are just, bringing in abundance, bringing in, connection to your intuition, connection to your divination, creating more love in your life. That's self-love. That's not even just attracting love from somebody else. It's creating self-love, self-compassion, right? I also have, things that'll keep you calmer, because we live in a really toxic society. And so restore and rebalance goes great behind the vagus nerve. It's essential oil blends that also with skull cap is just a great soothing formula. And so just go and check it out. Violet's Bewitching on Etsy.
Violet's Bewitching. For all of you out there, go check it out. She has some amazing products. And Amy, is there anything else that we need to share that maybe we didn't touch on in the show? I know we had a lot to cover.
I'm just going to include the free gift of, 5 tips that we talked about today: sleep, getting outside, toxins, all of those things. Be mindful of what you're ingesting in an ebook that people can grab as a free gift.
Great. Well, that's great. So thank you so much, Amy, for all that you do. Thank you for sharing your healing journey. And it's funny how many of us kind of mirror each other a little bit in the way that we are beginning to awaken to different means of healing and how are we taking care of ourselves. And so I really appreciate all of the work that you're doing, all of these beautiful tinctures, concoctions, and balms that you're putting out there for people to assist in their healing journey. So thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanya.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.